Good evening and welcome to tonight's mayoral Democratic primary sponsored by the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists here at the Burchfield Penney Arts Center. I'm Al Waters. Tonight our debate is being broadcast live on WNLO CW23 and streamed live at WIVB.com. The Buffalo Association of Black Journalists, we just got to let you know, was established to promote diversity in all newsrooms, and we sponsor a Carl Allen Scholarship to encourage young people to take up journalism as a career choice. Tonight's candidates, which very well could be the first time ever 3 elected officials are competing in a primary for the same office, and I will introduce them starting from your left to your right. On your far left is Buffalo City Controller Mark Schroeder. Middle seat is Erie County Legislator Betty Jean Grant. And on the far right, our incumbent mayor, Byron Brown. Thank you very much. You just added 30 seconds to our to our broadcast. Now, our esteemed BABJ members serving on the journalist panel who will be questioning our candidates, and hopefully you can see them to my left, will be my colleague at WIVB, anchor reporter Brittany Smallwood, Shanti Perkins, producer of DJ Star Show, and Ms. Eva Doyle, columnist for the Buffalo Criterion and a commentator for WFO Radio. Now, just to let you know, we'll have file cards available for our live audience members to submit additional questions other than those that are asked by our panelists here. And during the debate, 2 fellow journalists, Kevin Jolly of Spectrum News, Kevin, and Liz Lewin of WKBW Channel 7, right over here. They'll be collecting those questions, and some of those questions will be asked of the candidates. Now let's proceed. But first, the ground rules, the most important thing, actually. First, we've had our 3 candidates draw numbers for the seating order here. They will be given 2-minute opening statements from left to right and 1-minute closing statements in the reverse order. 2 minutes per answer, 30 seconds to rebut direct attacks. And I will let you know we also have a timer over here. Use that there. Use that weapon. And we're going to try to stick to that as close as possible. We can't be exact, but we just can't let things get out of order. Now, questioners can follow up if they don't feel a question was answered, and the candidate will have an additional minute to clarify their answer. First question first to the first candidate. Second question first to, okay, that's kind of complicated, so we'll just take that as we go along. Questions submitted by audience will be worked in the mix. So our first question will be asked by our panelists. Ms. Eva Doyle, you want to start things off, and we will start from on the far left with Controller Mark Schroeder. I'm sorry.
We're going to do an open statement first.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have a controller. It's good to have the controller around, so I can.
Yeah, it's better not to save the opening statement for the middle. Okay, you're right. Okay, so from Mr. Schroeder, if you would start off a 2-minute opening statement.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about the issues. And I will be giving out the Buffalo Bills score every 30 minutes. So I'm Mark Schroeder, and I have a new vision for Buffalo. Everybody will have a seat at the table. No neighborhood will be left behind. I've been the Buffalo City Controller for the last 5.5 years. We've done over 60 audits. I know what's wrong. I see mismanagement in the audits, and I know how to fix it. And we have a plan. It's called the Compass Plan. So those of you in the viewing audience, if you would just close your eyes just for a few seconds and envision a compass. A compass offers direction. It helps us get to where we need to get to. And so a compass is also something that offers direction, and it has letters on it, N, S, W, and E. The N in our compass plan, it stands for neighborhood development. It's time that we focus in on our neighborhoods where you live by helping small businesses and not just big developers. The S stands for safe streets. The police officers in the city of Buffalo are saying they are starving for training. They will get comprehensive training when I'm the mayor of this city. I will double every single community police officer in every district in the city of Buffalo. The E stands for employee excellence. I will hire employees based on what they know, not who they know. The W stands for a work plan. You can't tackle the big challenges unless you have a plan. We have problems like poverty, lead, crime, BMHA, and affordable housing. That's my vision for Buffalo.
Thank you. Thank you, Controller Schroeder. Legislator Betty Jean Grant.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Betty Jean Grant, and I'm running for mayor of the city of Buffalo, and I'm running because I am the best candidate for the job. I'm experienced, qualified, have integrity, and I will work with all to ensure that Buffalo has a better future. I will have a city hall that's operated fairly, inclusive, and not on any cloud of suspicions. We will not engage in play-for-play politics, and City Hall will not be for sale to the highest bidder. I will create a budget of inclusiveness that includes all of Buffalo. That includes all of Buffalo, not parts of Buffalo. I will work with the Common Council to ensure that we have street paved and sidewalk fixed, and the homicide rate is reduced. I will work with the community and the police to ensure that homicides that has one been solved this year, that we'll have a higher rate of homicide being solved. 1 out of 33 is unacceptable. 1 out of 33 is unacceptable. We can do better. How are we going to do better? I will hire a new commissioner, and I will do a nationwide search. I will hire a commissioner just like Commissioner Gil Kurakowski, who did so much for Buffalo in the 1990s and early 2000s. I will make sure that the Central Terminal will be the home of the new train station. I'm gonna say it twice. I will make sure that the Central Terminal will be the home of the new train station. In addition, all the commercial strips that are struggling, like Jefferson Avenue and Fillmore and Broadway, that we will have shops and pop-up stores. I will make sure that City Hall work with the community before a budget is passed. I will make sure that the $120 million that came to Buffalo in the last 10 years as community development block grant money is spent to relieve poverty and blight. That's what the money is intended for. So senior citizens will not have to wait 3 years to repair their roof, to make sure the house repair, and they don't lose their home through foreclosure. I will make sure that money that's coming from the state that dealing with foreclosure will give grants to those whose homes are in foreclosure. So what I would do,
Legislator Grant.
I would have a new Buffalo that includes all of Buffalo, not just parts.
And Mayor Byron Brown.
Good evening. I want to thank the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists, the NAACP, the Buffalo State College Communications Department, the National Action Network, the Concerned Clergy Coalition of Western New York, and Channel 4 for sponsoring tonight's mayoral debate. If you think back to when I started as mayor, Buffalo was a much different place. The city was in fiscal crisis. The state had to impose a financial control board. The wages of all city employees had been frozen, and neighborhoods throughout the city of Buffalo were blighted with vacant and abandoned structures. I put a strategic plan in place that enabled us to stabilize the city's finances and improve our economy. We were able to demolish over 6,400 of these vacant, unsalvageable structures that were blighting our neighborhoods and destroying quality of life. We passed 12 balanced budgets with millions in surplus. We were able to increase investment in the Buffalo public schools and the youth of our community to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. And we reduced crime in the city of Buffalo by 35%. Our municipal credit rating is higher than it's ever been. And I have been able to do all of this and still cut taxes for homeowners and businesses in the city of Buffalo. Going forward, I have a plan to continue to increase investment in every neighborhood in our city, to create more jobs throughout our city, and to invest in affordable housing and mixed income housing throughout Buffalo. I am asking for your support to run for re-election as mayor of the city of Buffalo, asking for your vote to run for re-election as mayor of the city of Buffalo, to continue the work that we've started together. When we work together, there is nothing that we can't accomplish in this city. And together, we will continue to build a Buffalo of opportunity for all people.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you. Our first question from our panelist, Eva Doyle, and our first question goes to legislator Betty Jean Grant.
Yes, sir.
We've all heard about jobs, after-school programs, etc. What new ideas will you implement to reduce gun violence?
One thing I would do would to have those checkpoints that we seem to be targeting certain parts of Buffalo, particularly east side of Buffalo. I would put those checkpoints at the borders. If we're looking for guns and drugs, then we need to look outside of Buffalo, because Buffalo does not have a gun factory. If guns are coming in, they're coming in. So what I would do, Ms. Doyle, would have checkpoints at the border of Cheektowaga, Buffalo, Kenmore, Buffalo, Tonawanda, Buffalo, all those towns and villages that borders Buffalo, including Lackawanna, so that when we have checkpoints, that they're done not only at the borders, but if they're done in the city of Buffalo, they have to be done all over. So what I would do is make sure that we will have those checkpoints to ensure that they're treated fairly. As for jobs, with an unemployment rate on the east side of Buffalo, inner city and lower west side of 35 to 40% for our young men, we have to have more job training programs. We have to have an opportunity for individuals to work. How we do that? Open community centers. Why are they closing at 5 o'clock? I mean, our tax dollars being used, why not stay open to 9 o'clock, bring in programs? We're waiting for the Northern Corridor. That's a concept. That is a concept. Until it's built, it is a concept. So until we wait till 2018 or 2019 or forever, what we need to do is have those Delavan Grider, JFK, all these community centers open to 9 p.m. and have job training program. And also mentoring programs. So what I do to increase jobs is open opportunity, especially in our community centers.
Thank you. Thank you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown.
One way to stop gun violence is to invest in our youth. And I've been doing that as mayor of the city of Buffalo. We have invested heavily in Say Yes to Education, which promises every young people that goes to a Buffalo public or charter school will be able to get a college scholarship to go on to college. We've invested in the academic supports for children and their families, for children to be able to get to the point where they can graduate and go on to college. The city of Buffalo, my administration with the city council, has invested more than than $1.8 million in Say Yes to Education. We've increased funding for programs for youth. We're spending the highest amount of money in the history of the city of Buffalo putting our youth to work in the summertime, making sure that our youth know what it's like to work so that they're able to earn an honest day's work in the summer, and that has been very successful in showing our youth alternatives to violence. We've also invested heavily in programs through the Buffalo Police Athletic League, again, funding our Police Athletic League in the highest level in the history of the city of Buffalo. This summer, we funded 40 Say Yes Buffalo Public School camps for children from kindergarten to the 6th grade, academic enrichment camps to make sure that our children were keeping their academic skills sharp in the summer months. We have been negotiating community benefit agreements on every economic development project that takes place in the city of Buffalo, setting goals for the participation of minority and women-owned businesses, minority and female workers. We are seeing more and more members of our community go to work through those community benefit agreements. So we have to invest in our young people. We have to invest in people that are looking for employment right now, and those are the things that we're doing to stop the cycle of gun violence in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Controller Schroeder.
So, Mr. Mayor, in all due respect, you have had 12 years to fix these problems, and the results are not good enough right now. There were over 550 shootings. There were over 550 shootings in 2016, 46 homicides. Not good enough, Mr. Mayor. We can do better. And that is the reason why I have a plan. I have a compass plan. And neighborhood development is essential to it. In each neighborhood, east side, west side, north side, south side, there will be a one-stop shop. You don't have to go all the way downtown to Michigan and Goodell to go to Betsy, which nobody even knows what Betsy means. It's going to be in your neighborhood where you live. One-stop shop. So if you need a GED, you come in to the west side or to the east side or to the south side or to the north side. You need job training, you come in. If you want to open up a business on Seneca Street or on Jefferson Street, you come on in. If you need to understand about tax compliance because you have a business and you only have a few employees, you come in and we can help you. We will blend in with the superintendent who does have a plan, the new education bargain with parents and students. Our community schools blended in with our neighborhood development one-stop shops are going to work perfectly. And then, to answer the question regarding guns and violence, there are 55 gangs in the city of Buffalo, over 700 gang members. And I will create what I call the Ezekiel program. The prophet Ezekiel said, I can put in you a new heart. I can put in you a new spirit. And there are people that can help me. I know who the stakeholders are in the city of Buffalo. And we can begin to solve some of these problems that we have each and every day. And the families who mourn the loss of their loved ones because of the violence on the streets of Buffalo. We can do better, Mr. Mayor. And you had 12 years to do better.
Thank you, Controller Schroeder.
Can I rebut?
Controller Schroeder. Okay, Mayor, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Thank you. Well, maybe, Mr. Controller, you should tell the people of Buffalo what your record was like when you were in the New York State Assembly. You refused to vote to take guns out of the hands of children as young as 11 years old. You refused to vote to make armor-piercing bullets illegal when you were a member of the New York State Assembly. You refused to enhance background checks when you were a member of the New York State Assembly. Now you want to talk about Ezekiel? Why didn't you talk about Ezekiel when you were a member of the New York State Assembly, Mr. Controller?
Okay. We've got to ask you. We've got to ask you because we are following a timetable here. Excuse me. We realize that we have a huge crowd here, and you guys are into the election, but we have to respect the candidates, respect each other, and each time we have these long applause, and I'm sure you feel that it's deserved, it takes time out from our candidates expressing their views. Controller Schroeder, that was a personal attack. You have 30 seconds to rebut. I'm sorry, Legislator Grant. These are rebuttals. These are rebuttals, personal attacks.
I'm rebuttal what Mayor Brown said.
No. You were not personally attacked.
Well, he put some misinformation out there. Can I rebuttal that?
I understand what you're saying. This is
Okay,
a
I'll
rule
address it
for
in the
this
next
is a
speech.
rule for
Okay.
personal attacks.
Okay, thank
Controller Schroeder, you have 30 seconds.
So, Mr. Mayor, and to the audience, Byron Brown also spent time as a New York State Senator, and so if I had 1,000 employees working for me, I could probably do this research on him as well. I don't. And so I have to stay focused on what the issues are. And the issues is, as a candidate for the city of Buffalo for mayor, we have a responsibility to go forward. We have a responsibility to reduce crime and violence on our city streets. We have a responsibility to offer programs that make sense. And so therefore, I will be able to go forward using the experience I had as a New York State Assembly member. Certainly I made mistakes. I was an independent member. I didn't belong to Sheldon Silver.
Controller Schroeder.
Any vote I took,
Controller
I
Schroeder.
decided on, and if I made mistakes, I've made mistakes, but I learn from my mistakes and I go forward each and every day.
Controller, thank you. Our next question will be posed by Brittany Smallwood, and her first question goes to Mayor Brown.
Mayor, with all the improvements that we've seen on the waterfront as well as on the medical campus, what is your plan for improving other city neighborhoods like the East Side?
We have not only invested in the waterfront and downtown and the medical campus, which are engines of opportunity for our entire city. They belong to each and every one of us, and we should all claim the opportunities that are coming out of those areas. But we've invested in Martin Luther King Park over $9 million. We've invested in the Apollo Telecommunications Center. We've invested in Broderick Park, the Underground Railroad Park on the west side, over $11 million. We've invested over $10 million in parks and playgrounds in every area of the city of Buffalo. We've invested in the Riverbend complex, which is where Solar City, Tesla, Panasonic is coming to Buffalo. Panasonic has already begun the process of hiring people to come and work in our community, people that live in our community now. So we have made significant investments in every single area of the city of Buffalo, whether it's the south side, the north side, the east side, or the west side. We will continue to make those kinds of investments. We've also taken over $30 million of funds and leveraged that into over $330 million of spending to create over 1,400 units of affordable housing throughout the city of Buffalo. One major project that we did was on Dodge Street, where we did a building that had been vacant for more than 30 years. It now houses over 84 families, St. Martin Village, that I'm proud to have worked on with Assemblywoman Crystal People-Stokes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Controller Schroeder.
So thank you for the question, and quite frankly, it's troubling. The mayor has had 12 years, 144 months. And if you go with me door to door, in every single neighborhood in the city of Buffalo. I've done it, and I continue to do it. I do not have $500,000 in my campaign kitty, and I can't do commercial after commercial after commercial telling Buffalo how wonderful things are, because quite frankly, it's not. And when the mayor does his commercials, the people in the houses sitting on the couches will yell back to the mayor, just like they do during a Buffalo Bills game. And they're gonna say, Mayor, maybe things are wonderful, but they're not so wonderful here. Buffalonians are very grateful. They are grateful for downtown development and waterfront development. But quite frankly, the people in the neighborhoods are muttering, what about us? And we have a plan for the neighborhoods, every neighborhood, east side, west side, north side, and south side. It's very clear about the Compass Plan and doing one-stop shops and business incubators in our neighborhoods will help give opportunities for young ones and for those who want to open up a business in the city of Buffalo.
Mayor Brown, 30 seconds.
So the comptroller has been in office for just about as long as I have, and you're just hearing about these great plans that he has now. So, you know, I find that very disingenuous that after being in office as long as he has been, you're just hearing about plans for Buffalo now. We, on the east side of Buffalo, we've created the Beverly Gray Business Exchange Center. It will work with minority, women, small businesses, and veteran-owned businesses. So that kind of incubator is in existence right now. Businesses can come from all across the city to be able to utilize that center that the city has redeveloped at a cost of over $2.3 million.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Controller Schroeder.
Mr. Mayor, you may recall when I came to see you some time ago with Deputy Mayor Steve Casey, and that's when you were disbanding the BERC, which is the economic development opportunity that we had for the city of Buffalo. And I suggested to you and Deputy Mayor Casey that perhaps what we could do is start a Buffalo City Chamber of Commerce, because every single business district in the city of Buffalo is sound asleep, except for Hurdle and Elmwood. And so you rejected that plan and did nothing about it. So I have had a lot of ideas over the years, Mr. Mayor, but you've ignored them. And obviously you don't have your own ideas because the business districts and the neighborhoods are suffering greatly.
Thank you. One rebuttal apiece. Legislator Grant, would you like to, thank you for your patience.
You're
welcome. You like to have the question read again?
Yes.
Okay. Ready?
The question is, with all the development taking place on the waterfront as well as on the medical campus, what is your plan for improving cities like the East Side?
Locating the train station in the central terminal. Locating the train station. That was a missed opportunity. A missed opportunity. When the community spoke, when 98% of the residents of the city of Buffalo, not just the East Side, said that the new train station should be at the central terminal, and we had surveyed and we had petitions, and a 17-member committee that had meetings and heard the people say the central terminal chose an area outside, that is not community friendly. That is not working with the resident. I will not have misappropriation of funds. I will not have, and the mayor talked about the CBA. I'm gonna go to the CBA, the Community Benefit Agreement. When I was on ECIDA, and Mayor Brown was there as a member, and we had an issue of having a CBA being enacted with a building that Carl Palladino owed. And I asked for support to help me to ensure that the community benefited by having set aside apartments for low income and those disabled, and the mayor refused to vote. I'm wondering why, but I'm not wondering anymore, because when I saw the mayor campaign finance form, guess who gave the mayor money? Carl Palladino. okay? So when you accept money from individual, you can't open your mouth. You can't vote for the community. I have never accepted money from Cara Palladino, LP Simonelli, who gave the mayor money, who is under indictment for Solar City that the mayor is bragging about, that spent $750 million for a building that's still there, unused 2 years later. That's nothing to brag about. $750 million of $1 billion went to Solar City, and that building's still vacant. And guess what? And when it is operational, it won't be people look like you and me there. Well, some of you. But it won't be, but it won't be those on the east side who are underemployed, those who need an opportunity because they're not being trained. So that's nothing to brag about. And every building should have a CBA. We did that in 1998. We had people develop set-aside apartments for low income. I left City Hall in 2003. I guess idea left with me because we're not doing it. And there's a CBA, I think, policy in the Common Council that the mayor refused to encourage his colleagues to sign.
Legislative Grant.
Sign the CBA, council members. It is time.
Thank you. Mayor, you have 30 seconds.
So let me just say these claims, I want to say this very clearly, of misappropriation of funds is absolutely ridiculous. We have used money in the city of Buffalo very strategically. The funds that we have used in the city of Buffalo have produced over $6.1 billion of economic development projected to create more than 12,000 jobs for the residents of this community. We have been able to build back the finances of the city, and we're now spending more money in every aspect of spending in neighborhoods throughout the city of Buffalo.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question from panelist Shanti Perkins for Controller Schroeder.
Controller Schroeder, does Buffalo have a race problem? And if so, what will you do to address it?
Many of you may remember the speech that Dr. King gave in 1967. It was called The Other America. And then in 1984, Governor Mario Cuomo at the Democratic National Convention, he gave the same speech, but it was called The Tale of Two Cities. So what does it mean? Here's what it means here in Buffalo and other places. There is systemic racism that continues on here in Buffalo. There is a wealth gap here in the city of Buffalo. The Buffalo-Niagara Partnership, which used to be the Buffalo Chamber of Commerce, their top 10 issues each and every year has nothing to do with Buffalo. Nothing. And when they have their meeting every year in January, and there's 300 people who show up at their meeting at Pettibone's, I was there in January, there were two people of color, Mayor Brown and Mike from Chicago. It wasn't Michael Jordan, though. There is an education gap here in the city of Buffalo. And those want to brag that the graduation rate is 64%. In the African American community, it's less than 50%. In the ESL community, it's less than 50%. And finally, there is a criminal justice gap here in the city of Buffalo. And the mayor has been mayor for 12 years. There has been 4 district attorneys right across the street from the mayor. Not once has he gone across the street to say, these police checks are only on the east side of Buffalo. Why is that? It's because a police officer doesn't decide where the police checkpoints are going to be. The mayor and the commissioner does. This can all be solved, Buffalo, but you can't solve it unless you identify it, unless you say it, and unless you have a plan for it. And I do.
Thank you, Controller Schroeder. Mayor Brown, you have 30 seconds.
So, that again was ridiculous. Of course, I've met with every single DA that has been in office. The traffic safety checkpoints are designed to respond to citizen concerns about people blowing through their stop signs in their neighborhoods, driving through their neighborhoods, blaring X-rated music, speeding through their neighborhoods, endangering their children. Now, when we look at the 311 calls for service, many of the calls to 311 and many of the calls for service to our police department are for traffic safety enforcement. That's why we have set up traffic safety checkpoints.
Thank you, Mayor. Legislator Grant.
Can you please repeat the question?
I sure can.
I have to answer and I have to know what was said.
Does Buffalo have a race problem? And if so, how will you address it?
No, Buffalo does not have a race problem. Buffalo has a class problem. It is to tell it to city, and Mark, I didn't steal your information, it's on here. And even though the mayor is going across town saying that Mark and I are colluding, that's just a lie that he's telling focus group. I have not colluded with anybody. I don't need to. I carry my own weight. As for the class problem, when you have Canal Side being redeveloped, and you have Jefferson Avenue idling at a stagnant stalemate. We have the medical corridor and it's a neighborhood around it, getting new sidewalks. And Broadway Fillmore is waiting for its turn. When you have Niagara Street, and it's beautiful, every sidewalk fixed, every curb, from City Hall to Port Avenue, whether the individual in front of the sidewalks, which we're supposed to be fixing, I heard, whether they're millionaires or disabled individual, their curbs and sidewalk was replaced. But yet and still, certain parts of the east side, you can't walk on the sidewalk. You have to walk in the street, and you have to have a child to die because the mother could not walk on the sidewalk. That's not an issue of race. That's an issue of classism and elitism. And that's what's happening in Buffalo. We're building up part of Buffalo, and we're ignoring the rest of Buffalo. So no, we don't have a race problem. We definitely have a class problem. We definitely have a problem where money that's been geared for community of need has been misdirected and spent on Canal Side. When you got porta potties in MLK Park and the restroom closed, and you go to Canal Side and you got air-conditioned restroom, there's some disparity. There's some unfairness. Did my tax dollar pay for air conditioning in a restroom? I don't have air conditioning in my house. There is a class problem in Buffalo. Race, we can do it because we're the city of good neighbors. We got a diverse population in Buffalo, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud we don't have race riots here in Buffalo. I'm proud we don't have, when the KKK come, and the other white nationalists, when they come, we attack them one to a number, black, white, Latinos, Asian, everybody else. The problem is not race, my friends. The problem is classism and the misdirection of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, two minutes.
Well, quite clearly, it's easy for the legislator and the comptroller to attack my record because I have one. So there have been decades and decades of disinvestment in many neighborhoods in this city. And we have been able to take a situation where we inherited a fiscal crisis, stabilize the budget, and increase every year the money we spend on streets, the money we spend on sidewalks, and the money we spend on infrastructure. I was just told I had 2 minutes. Do I have 2 minutes? Or?
Yes, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, and the money we spend on infrastructure. So we have increased the amount of money that we spend in neighborhoods all across the city of Buffalo. We have spent over $50 million on streets and sidewalks in neighborhoods across the city of Buffalo. And we might have been able to fix every street and every sidewalk if it wasn't for the comptroller's misguided debt diet that he has put this community on, where interest rates now are at some of the lowest levels in history, and this man insists on us not spending more than $22 million on capital spending in the city of Buffalo. We've gone to him, we've asked him to increase capital spending. In fact, when Mayor Masiello was the mayor, we spent twice as much on capital needs in the city of Buffalo. But under this comptroller, we haven't been able to do that because of his short-sighted debt diet that he's put the city on. Even economists have gone to him and asked him to lift the debt diet because interest rates have been so low in the city of Buffalo. It makes sense to borrow when interest rates are as low as they are, so we could bring more improvement to neighborhoods all across the city of Buffalo. It's that kind of judgment that we don't need in the mayor's office in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you, audience. Controller Schroeder,
Oh, thank
30
you.
seconds.
So, Mr. Mayor, that was actually amusing. The reason why it was amusing is that I believe that there's only one that makes the judgment, and it's not me, and it's not you. And I can make some observations in that you have lost your way. And that is why everything goes to the waterfront and everything goes to downtown Buffalo. Now, I have a record too, Mr. Mayor, and I've been the comptroller for the last 5.5 years. Never in our history have we ever received 3 upgrades within a 5-year period, and the highest upgrade in the history of the city of Buffalo. And also, when I first became the comptroller, there was 1 certified public accountant. Now I have 10. I hire people who have credentials. That is the reason why you don't understand why I have to put limitations on you, because
Controller
your commissioners are inept and they do not have the ability to spend down the money. They do not have the ability to spend down the money.
Controller Schroeder.
And there's proof of it.
Controller Schroeder, we have to move on. At this point, we are going to take some questions from the audience, and we will start with Liz Lewin with our first question from the audience.
Good evening, candidates and Mayor Brown. Yes, there are question cards going around. If you'd like one, just raise your hand.
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Fill out a card, please, and we're going to respect our audience.
Thank you. I want to preface this first question with the temperature of cultural and racial sensitivity that's going on in our nation right now. Would you support the creation of a Department of Cultural Development within city government, staffed by a cabinet-level appointee? If so, why? And what steps would you specifically take to do so? If you would not, why wouldn't you support it?
Legislator Grant, you take this question
I think the
first.
City Hall has a Department of Cultural Diversity that's chaired by Crystal Rodriguez. I know that when I was a council member, we had a Commission on Community Relations and Human Rights Community Relations, and we met very often. If that Commission on Diversity is still there, it just needs to be probably strengthened and have public meetings. I think the mechanism is there. It's just the mayor and his administration need to make sure that the committee knows that there is a committee on diversity and that issue of race and cultures can be addressed there. I think the city's done a very good job in that aspect. I'm not going to beat up our mayor on that one. But however, we need to get those meetings publicized, because what is happening in Charlottesville, Virginia, what's happening in other cities and towns and villages, it's going to happen here in Buffalo. I heard yesterday a truck driver's driving down a Cheektowaga Road with a Confederate flag flying highly. So we have issues here that has to be addressed, and I think that committee needs to be re-in panel. It needs to have some very culturally sensitive individual, and it needs to be publicized.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown?
Let me say, I will take my staff and commissioners any day. They are the ones that help to pull this city out of fiscal crisis. Also, it's important to note when it comes to the upgrades in the municipal credit rating, that comes from the management work that the mayor does. And most of the upgrades that the city has received to its municipal credit rating are before this controller even got into office. You need to know that. Let me just say that we have been very focused on cultural diversity. We have hired the first chief diversity officer ever in the history of the city of Buffalo. It's a cabinet level position. It meets with our commissioners, reports directly to me and the deputy mayors. I will also say that each and every one of our commissioners has gone through racial equity training that has been provided by a consulting firm working with the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo. So this is something that we have focused very intensely on, including hiring the first ever executive director of the Office of New Americans because of the growth of immigration in the city of Buffalo. That person is also in the law department working to make sure that the needs of racial minorities, women are focused on. I will also say we've hired the most diverse administration in the history of the city of Buffalo. More blacks and other minorities, more Latinos, more women in management level positions than ever in the history of the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Controller Schroeder, you have 2 minutes.
So the short answer to your question is yes. And so it's also important to know that the mayor has been the mayor for 4,380 days. And so therefore, let's take a look at the Opportunity Pledge, which was a press conference that he did some time ago. Are there any statistics how that's going, internal to City Hall or outside of City Hall? Because we should be concerned about also the people who live in the city of Buffalo. And the MWBE numbers in this town are not good. They are not good, and there's no compliance, there is no stats, and CityStat doesn't exist anymore, which was an opportunity for Deputy Mayor Casey to castigate and ridicule all of the commissioners that you seem to love so much, Mr. Mayor. And so I think there's a problem in this town when there are other places that have MWBE numbers that are high, and then in the city of Buffalo, there is no opportunity, and for veterans as well. Every time I've gone to the market to do a refunding, I do an RFP, and we include MWBE and veterans. Every single deal that I've done in the city of Buffalo as the controller for the last 5.5 years has gone that way, and that's because I know what the city looks like.
Thank you, Controller Schroeder. Mayor Brown, you have 30 seconds.
So I would say to you that our controller is a Johnny-come-lately when it comes to understanding diversity. And not only has he come lately, I don't think he's come at all. Now, let me just say, when I was mayor, he was a member of the State Assembly, and he called me up often, asking me to hire people, recommending people. Never in all of those times that he called, advocating for people to be hired, advocating for opportunities for people, did he ever once advocate for a person of color or a woman. That's important to know.
Thank you. Thank you, audience.
Mayor, you should apologize for that. Mayor, you should apologize for that. Shame on you.
Controller Schroeder, is that? Controller Schroeder, you have 30 seconds.
I just said what I had to say. The
Okay.
mayor should be ashamed of himself for saying that.
I'm not ashamed for telling the
He
truth.
knows-
You know the
he
truth,
knows
and
better.
that is the truth.
Thank you.
You know better than
You know the truth, and that is the truth. And I am sorry if the truth hurts you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I am sorry about that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, tell the truth. Tell the truth and shame the devil.
I am
That-
telling the truth,
Gentlemen,
and hopefully
gentlemen,
the
what you're
truth
saying.
will set you free.
Gentlemen, we've got to move on. Thank you, audience. Our next audience question from Kevin Jolly, and that next question will be directed at Mayor Brown.
Okay, this is regarding the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority. And it is directed toward the mayor, but obviously the other candidates should weigh in as well. So why did Mayor Brown wait 10 years to make changes at the BMHA 40 days before the primary, when it is common knowledge about the mismanagement, misappropriation, and patronage at the BMHA, and it has also turned its back on residents? How do you respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
Housing authorities all across this country are in crisis because of cuts at the federal level that have come down from Republican administrations and Republicans in Congress. The Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority is suffering from cuts in funding that come year after year after year. But I see the residents of the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority as city residents. And so we have come in to remove snow when they've needed it. We've come in to board abandoned buildings when they've needed it, to cut grass. We have come in to provide cleaning services when they have needed it. And those services have cost the city money. And because those services have cost the city money, our comptroller now is trying to bill back $4 million to the BMHA on the backs of some of the poorest people in the city of Buffalo. And I say no, I will not allow that $4 million to come back to the city. Yes, we have changed the board of the BMHA to deal with the chaos that exists in Washington now, because we expect more cuts to come down from this present administration and from Mr. 45. But we will be prepared to deliver services to the residents of BMHA.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you, audience. Controller Schroeder, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, and it's important to note that the mayor has been mayor for 12 years, and mayors are responsible for affordable housing and for the BMHA. Mayors have been responsible for the BMHA since 1934, so there should be no secrets here, and that it's very obvious to me that 49 days before the September 12th primary, the mayor has restructured the BMHA. Why? It's because not only there are certain difficulties coming from Washington, but there is gross mismanagement here at the 26 different housing developments across the city of Buffalo. Come with me. Allow me to show you Schaefer Village and Riverside. Allow me to show you how people have to live at the Perry projects. And because the mayor, where my mother lived for some time when she went to college, which I could never take her back to the Perry projects because of the way it looks, and because the mayor doesn't have a plan and hasn't had a plan, the Congressman Higgins had to come swooping in and have a press conference at the Perry Project and put forth a plan, which frightened the residents of the Perry Projects even more, because when the congressman did it, he never mentioned the term IZ, inclusionary zoning, of which, Mr. Mayor, you have been asked by Push Buffalo, you have been asked by every pastor in the city of Buffalo to sign the inclusionary zoning to give people with affordable housing opportunities to live with some of the developments that the big shot developers who you seem to have a very close relationship with. And so these are some of the problems that we have here in the city of Buffalo, and the mayor has had 12 years to solve it. 49 days before the primary, he has restructured the BMHA, and there's no public discourse because the council is on recess during August. The next time they'll be able to talk about the matter that the mayor did in the restructuring is on September 12th. I wonder what day that is.
Thank you, Controller. The 2 minutes also included his rebuttal. So we're going to move on to Legislator Grant.
Thank you very much. The people who are in public housing would live in a tragedy. How they're forced to live in garbage-strewn hallways, rodent-infested, bird-infested. I went to Perry Project, and they don't have a janitor to sweep the stairwells, but they spend $3 million for outside legal counsel. That means their priority is not in place. You have to have a quality of life, whether you live in Harbor Point, I think it is, on Canal Side or the waterfront, or whether you live in public housing. They have to have dignity. I get more call as a county legislator that has no control over the BMH phone call. Esther can tell you. They're calling about the inaccessibility of the executive director. They're talking about the 9 phone calls from the tenant commissioners. BMHA, where they're talking about Marine Drive or Perry Project, it is a shame. In Kentfield, Langfield, how poor people and those who are disabled, how they are forced to live in a public housing that should take care of them. Some of that money that's been spent for Canal Side and other areas of the city of Buffalo should be reinvested back into public housing.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. Just want to take this opportunity, it's like a 7th inning stretch, to thank this huge overflow crowd, overflow crowd of being respectful. Now we'll move on to our next audience question. Kevin Jolly, that question will be directed to Controller Schroeder.
But this is a follow-up to the housing question here. We heard the slogan, all of us have heard the slogan regarding cranes in the air, cranes in the air. There's been an explosion of housing, lofts and apartments downtown. Market rate housing. These apartments are going for anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month. The question is, who is this housing for? And we've seen the development in Buffalo and Agri-Medical campus. We've also seen the development, the gentrification, as some people call it, in the fruit belt.
Yeah.
So what happens to the folks in the fruit belt, and who is all this affordable housing for? Any of you can answer this question.
Well,
it is for those who work in the medical corridor. It is for those who will be going to school at the UB Medical School. It is for those who will be coming in working at the New Children's Hospital. It is not for the resident. How do I know this? Because the Buffalo News stated, new houses on Jefferson Avenue for the Buffalo Medical Corridor. You're not building for community. Why are you pretending? If you were building for community, you would not be building 1-bedroom apartments. If you're building for the community, you would have the community input. Most individuals in the community, and that's the east side of Main Street, they want to have houses they can buy, condos they can buy. They don't want to be crammed 180 units in a 1-block radius of 1-bedroom apartments. So who's planning for these future residents of Buffalo coming in? Who's doing the planning? It is not the community, because they have said, whether it is the Hamlin Park area or the Fruit Belt area, that they want affordable housing. When you have an apartment being rented for $1,400 a month, a 2-bedroom apartment on Brunswick Boulevard, there's something wrong with this picture. We're forcing people out of Buffalo to make ways for those who are coming in. And what that's called? The G word, gentrification. It has happened, it is here in Buffalo. And we need a mayor who said, we don't mind people coming in, but we will not force those out who have lived here, who lived in Buffalo, paid their taxes when Buffalo wasn't so good. We're going to make sure that they have a chance to stay. Maybe we should do rent control. Maybe we should have them grandfather in. If you've been in your house for 5 years, your appraisal does not go up and your property taxes do not go up as well. We have to protect our citizens because they stay when nobody wants to come to Buffalo. And now it's a good destination place. It's a good place for people to come, have fun, to litter, and go back home. We're stuck with the bill of police patrol, new substation canal side. What about the police station in the Broadway Market? That's where it's needed. That is where it's needed. So I say that we have to not push those out who have a right and obligation to stay here in the city of Buffalo. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown.
I can list off numerous affordable housing developments all over the city. Holy Family Apartments in South Buffalo that the city worked on. Senior citizens living there, all affordable housing. Just in Fillmore and Best, Parkview Apartments, done by an African-American female developer. The first major housing development in the history of this city done by an African-American female developer, done at a cost of $8 million. The city provided $1.1 million under my leadership, working with the city council, working with Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes, and that is all affordable housing with rents from $600 to $750 a month, and I could go on and on and on and on. We are concerned with the affordability of housing throughout the city. We will have a comprehensive plan for building mixed income, mixed use housing in every single area of the city of Buffalo. We will be releasing a housing opportunity strategy shortly. We hired a consultant. The strategy came back with best practices in housing all across the city of Buffalo. Inclusionary zoning that was mentioned is just one small component of a much larger, multi-layered plan that has to be initiated to protect housing and housing affordability throughout the city of Buffalo. And shortly, we will lay out a comprehensive plan that will show how we will do that in every area of the city where we will be building mixed income housing that will stabilize neighborhoods, strengthen neighborhoods, put more services and jobs in neighborhoods throughout the city of Buffalo.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, audience. Thank you, audience. Controller Schroeder.
So, Mr. Mayor, there's absolutely no question that you have had accomplishments. It's impossible not to when you're a 12-year mayor. But we can do better. And when will your plan be available? Because keep in mind, you have been mayor for a long time, and the plan is needed right now. Article 19, Section 2 says in the charter that the mayor must submit a 4-year strategic plan. You have not done it one time in 12 years. That is a problem. That is the reason why some of our neighborhoods look the way that they do. This is the reason why, without a plan, you could easily adopt the plan that Push Buffalo has for the West Side. And there are others, Pastor Chapman, who has a program for the Fruit Belt and for the High Street corridor. And so if you don't have your own plan, it would be good to work with stakeholders who have an idea of what's going on. Gentrification is a negative. It's a negative. And the word that we want to use here in Buffalo is rebranding. Rebranding is a positive. There was a resident from the Bronx who recently said, we don't need another Brooklyn in the Bronx, because the Bronx is the Bronx. There are neighborhoods in the city of Buffalo that are beautiful and diverse. They should stay that way, and they should not be pushed out by the developers who are coming in doing whatever it is they want to do. Why is it in the Fruit Belt? Is there an organization that has a land bank trust organization, volunteers, because they do not trust the city of Buffalo or Erie County. These are people in neighborhoods who are fearful. We can do this the right way. The oldest neighborhoods in the city of Buffalo, the hydraulics, which everybody now calls Larkinville. They didn't push anybody out. They built it up, and the people who've lived there for years and years and years are there. The old First Ward, there's been an infusion of money into the old First Ward, and they didn't push anybody out. There's a way to do this. There's a balanced way. Nobody should be pushed out of their neighborhood where they've lived their whole life and where they've raised their family. But we need a plan, Buffalo. We need a plan.
Controller Schroeder, thank you.
I was going to ready.
Mayor Brown, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
I'm going to rebut him too.
We have a very strategic plan. It's called the Buffalo Turnaround Plan. It's the plan that produced over $6.1 billion and coming 12,000 jobs for the people of this city. Now, I will tell you that all the neighborhoods that you just mentioned, Mr. Comptroller, benefited from city funds that my administration, so Larkinville, Ohio Street, the old First Ward, all of those neighborhoods that you mentioned have benefited from my plan and the resources that we have put in place.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Controller Schroeder, that was supposed to be my job, but thanks a lot.
I'm here to help you. I'm here to connect us.
Our next question will be posed by
I'd like to do a rebuttal because I have not been talking too much.
Legislator Grant.
Thank you.
Legislator Grant, I understand, but
30 seconds.
the rebuttal is only for personal attacks, and that's one rule we got to.
There's misinformation. I think it should be addressed.
Misinformation. Well,
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
30
seconds.
Okay, 30. Let me just say this: 30 seconds, and you have to stick to 30
I'll stop in
seconds.
mid-sentence. Okay. Mr. Schroeder said there's no such thing as gentrification. Rebranding is absolutely not true.
I didn't say that, Ms. Grant.
Okay, I'm very upset because gentrification is the pushing out of those who've been there, of new people coming in with money. So if that's what's happened all across the east side of Buffalo, you said it should be called rebranding. It is calling what it is. It's gentrification. It's an ugly word, but what has happened in Buffalo is an ugly action. So call it as it is.
I simply said that gentrification, in my view, is a negative connotation, and that the rebranding is all of these old neighborhoods who are suffering. They want a little bit of the action too, Ms. Grant. They want to be like Canal Side and like Larkinville and these other places. But we need to do it in a balanced approach. You do not push people out of their neighborhoods.
We have to cut it off.
We have to listen to the stakeholders
We have
and
to cut
see
it
what
off.
they want in
We
their
have to cut it
neighborhoods.
off.
That's
We have to cut it off.
rebranding a neighborhood.
Okay.
We have to cut it off.
And that is gentrification.
Our next, please.
Thank
Our
you.
next question from Eva Doyle from our panel, and that question directed at Mayor Brown.
What would you do as mayor to improve the African American Heritage Corridor, including the Broadway Barn? For those of you who don't know, the Broadway Barn used to be called the Buffalo Auditorium. It presently holds our garbage trucks and equipment for snow removal. But at one time, it hosted famous African Americans such as Joe Louis, Ella Fitzgerald, Cab Calloway. Joe Louis fought there January 11, 1938 to 8,000 people. So my question is, what would you do with the Broadway Barn so that it becomes a real part of the African American Heritage Corridor?
Mayor Brown.
Mrs. Doyle, thank you for that excellent question, and thank you for the work that you do with our students and in our community to educate us, to bring history alive. Let me just say that the Broadway Barns has been the garage for the Department of Public Works, one of the Public Works department garages for a very, very long period of time. We, in the city and my administration, have been going to Albany for a number of years requesting resources to build a comprehensive public works campus and move our public works facilities and operations out of the Broadway barn so that that can be a part of the African American Heritage Corridor on Michigan. We feel confident that we will be able to get resources to do that. Over the years, we have sought funding and sought legislation from Albany. Some of what we have sought has taken 3 years, has taken 4 years, but we have always been successful in bringing resources back to move the legislation, to move the funding for projects that we were targeting back to the community. So we are confident that with the relationships that I have with the members of the state legislature and with the governor, we will be able to obtain funding to build a comprehensive Department of Public Works campus and move the Broadway barns to another location, giving us the ability to redevelop that site as a site for the African American Cultural Corridor. And I also want to say we have had significant development in the corridor. One tremendous development is the addition of Power 96.5 FM to WUFO radio. And my administration provided assistance and technical assistance for Sheila Brown, the first black female radio owner in the state of New York, to be able to buy that radio station and get the loan that she needed from M&T Bank, providing her with 100% of the funding that she requested.
Mayor Brown, thank you very much. Hold that thought, Legislator Grant. Controller Schroeder.
Thank you, and especially thank you, Mother Doyle, for everything that you do for our community. I often go to the events that you host at the Merriweather and other places throughout the city of Buffalo, and especially thank you for your service in teaching our children, and you've never retired, I know that. So first of all, let me just let you in on something that's not widely known. We know it in audit and control. Council members know it. But again, you know, in 12 years, there is mismanagement. And there's mismanagement having to do with the historic Michigan Avenue that we're talking about here. And so 5 years ago, we went to the bond market for the archway. The archway is supposed to be at Michigan and Broadway. We went to the market to get the money. The money is still stuck. And the reason why it's stuck is because the administration didn't know what the side street was, didn't understand that it was Michigan and Broadway. They put down in the bond document Michigan and Utica. Now it's going to take Assemblywoman Stokes and members of the New York State Legislature to correct that. That's been 5 years. That's a 5-year mistake that could have helped this beautiful corridor right next to 96.5. These things all have ramifications when you mismanage and don't have control of your departments.
Legislative, out of fairness, Legislator Grant, you have been waiting patiently, and then Mayor Brown, you get 30 seconds for the rebuttal.
Thank you, because I one had to be a City Hall employee in order to get parity down here. I would put a multicultural center in the Broadway garage. I would celebrate the ethnicity of the Germans, the Polish, the Italians, the African American that helped to make Buffalo great. We have a diverse, and the Germans, we could have multicultural center there because having that garage so close to the Heritage Corridor is really an insult to them. To return to a multicultural museum would do a great service for that community. I also was wondering what happened to the Langston Hughes Institute. They were supposed to go into the building directly across the street for the Colored Musician Club. I saw last week's paper that it's been sold to 9 developers. One minority woman has a small investment part in it. But the Langston Hughes Center was forced out of their home on High Street, after being there for generations, mentoring and counseling and providing the culture for a whole generation of Buffalo. They were put into the Sheehan Hospital temporarily, now Campus East. They was evicted out of there. They bought the building, I thought, across the street from the Color Musician Club, to find out that they don't have a home. And a building that's being redeveloped with poor people's money and state incentives and federal incentives to have all these nice, wonderful businesses in that building, but not to find a space for the Langston Hughes Center is really a travesty and insult to the legacy of Miss Dorothy Hill and also Mrs. Forgot the first lady for the Langston Hughes Center.
Dorothy Hill.
No, not her. Well, anyway, she's an icon.
Miss Delgado.
Yes, Miss Delgado. Thank you very much. We need to find a home for the Langston Hughes Center because that institution is still in our memories because there's so many good things, but have them to be, and I'd like the mayor to explain what happened to that deal with the Langston Hughes Center in that building that they were supposed to go into.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown, you have 30 seconds.
So the comptroller has again missed the mark when he talks about mismanagement in bond language. Errors in bond language occur all the time. And prior to the nitpicking of this comptroller, under previous controllers, that would have been worked out and that would have been able to move forward and be sold very quickly. So that's not mismanagement. It's an error in the bond language, and under other controllers, that was never a problem before.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Ask Mayor a question.
Our next question from the audience, from Liz Lewin for Controller Shorter.
Ms. Vaughn, he had a rebuttal for me for the Langston Hughes Center. I asked the mayor what happened to that deal that they lost their building.
There was no personal attack. There was no personal attack.
Well, can I personalize the attack?
I wish you wouldn't.
We'll Legislator Grant will consider that at our next debate.
Thank you.
Audience question from Liz Lewin to Controller Schroeder.
This is both for the controller and for you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown, I will also direct it to you, but in a rephrased way. It's regarding law enforcement. To both of you, controller and legislator, if elected mayor, will community leaders, that includes community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, educational-based organizations, be part of your search and hiring committees for the next police commissioner? And, Mayor Brown, would you do anything differently? You faced a lot of criticism and attack both from your running mates and from the public about the way that you've run your police force and your commissioner. Would you do anything differently if elected for another 4 years? Controller Schroeder?
So we have those broken up. Controller Schroeder.
Yeah, thank you. I understand the question. And so there has been trouble here in the city of Buffalo over the last 12 years, especially over the last several years, 5 or 6 years. The police officers are saying that they're starving for training. But here's what's happening. The mayor has selected a commissioner who does not get along with the union president. Now, why is that a problem? Well, all of the police officers select who the union president is. The union president and the commissioner, Commissioner Durenda, they can't even be in the same building together, let alone sitting at the table trying to solve things. That is a problem. That will be solved. I have a transition folder that I've already started, and on September 13th, when I'm elected on September 12th, we will begin the transition process, and we will have the most qualified people, including those from the ecumenical communities, including the stakeholders. I've asked Leadership Buffalo to do an A through Z inventory of every 501c organization in the city of Buffalo. They will have have a seat at the table, not only to decide who certain officers or cabinet members are going to be, but for things that are very important that's within our Compass program. So the answer is yes, and I take that extremely serious, and we need to resolve. Mayor, you need to resolve this problem right now between the commissioner who is not listening to the police officers who are starving for training. And we have a heroin epidemic. We have mental health issues here in the city of Buffalo. This is no time to be in a situation that they don't want to have a conversation or talk about the issues that are most important to the citizens and to the safety of Buffalo.
Mayor Brown, 30 seconds.
So again, the comptroller is off the mark. For the last few weeks, we have met with the Buffalo Police Commissioner, the president of the union, the vice president of the union, talking about issues for the future of the Buffalo Police Department. The community police officer program was eliminated due to budget cuts prior to my election. We restored that program in 2010. We restored the cold case squad to send a message that we never stop looking for those who have committed homicide. And right now, residents have a seat at the table because each of our district police stations have a monthly meeting with members of the community to talk about issues, problems, crimes, and things that they want to see the police department do.
Thank you, Mayor. Legislator Grant.
Thank you. Absolutely. What I would do when I'm mayor would be to do a national search for a new police commissioner. I think Commissioner Dorinda is in over his head. I believe that our homicide rate is as it is because we don't have a very aggressive cold case squad. I believe that Commissioner Dorinda was chosen more as a favorite than anything else. His qualification, he didn't have a college degree, he didn't live in the city of Buffalo, and he was the mayor's driver during his first campaign. So he was rewarded. He was rewarded for his loyalty to the mayor. I will have each councilmatic district to submit 2 names to a commission to study and explore what are we looking for in a commissioner. And I know those remember Mr. Kurlikowski. He was one of the best commissioners Buffalo had. He was from out of town. So I would not be limited to Buffalo. I will be sure that the community is engaged in every decision because we have serious issues in Buffalo. We have death of suspects or victims or residents at the hand of police. So what I'll institute, number one, day one, is every police officer, while they're on duty, will have a body camera, a dash camera that will not be turned off only during lunch break and at the end of the tour. So I will make sure that Buffalo has the best police officer that we can find. I'm not limited to Buffalo because we have to really get a hand on these murders. Buffalo will not be a city of good neighbors and a safe city to be until we get a handle on our crime. And crime is increasing. Crime is increasing. If you count the 2 residents who were died while in custody of police, we've had 33 homicides. Guess how many we have solved? 1. That's inexcusable and unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown, you now have your 2 minutes.
So just last week, CNN published a story that indicated that the Buffalo Police Department was one of the top 3 police departments in the nation that went the longest without a death of a civilian. One of the top 3 in the nation. Also, it's important to note that we've negotiated residency with the Buffalo Police Benevolent Association, that a police officer has to live in the city of Buffalo for the first 7 years of their career, something that Mr. Kurlikowski was not able to do. We have also been able to change the educational requirement so that young people with a high school diploma can test to be members of the Buffalo Police Department, which which is the circumstance for more than 80 police departments all across this country, something that Mr. Kurlikowski didn't do, that proved to be a barrier to minority young people being able to go on the police department. We removed that barrier. It was something that the Concerned Clergy Coalition that we meet with on a regular basis worked with us on doing, and we were successful in being able to do that to diversify the Buffalo Police Department.
I want to thank you for being passionate and very respectful, but we're coming to the end of our hour and a half. In this case, we kind of have to change the rules a little bit. The last question from Brittany Smallwood, and you have 1 minute to answer the question, starting with Legislator Grant. Brittany?
What would you do to improve community relationships between the police and the community? Also, what will you do to ensure that the community officers are culturally matched to the communities in which they serve?
What I would do is have more of the event that's happening in Maston Park, I think this weekend, where the community, each district will have community day, where they would network with the individual to have maybe play a game of basketball. I know this coming Saturday we have Buff City Hoops in Maston Park, and we have a lot of police officers there, and they're very, very courteous and nice when they're not being directed not to attend my events. When they have the freedom to attend events, they're nice. So what I would do, have more community days. I also would have cultural diversity a part of their courses in their academy training, and also spend the first 6 months on the beat. Walking the beat, whether it's wintertime, summertime, they would spend the first 6 months after the academy walking the beats. I think that gives them opportunity to know the neighborhood, know the people there have to police. You can't come in like a colonel or an army of invaders and expect people to give you information. For the murder on Carl Street, 20 people saw that murder. Not one witness came forward because they did not trust that their information would be held confidential. And sometimes it doesn't. I was compromised when I was a council member by a police officer who told a drug dealer that I sent him to his house. So you have to have a level of respect and a level of confidentiality and trust between the officer and the police department and the community.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. Mayor Brown.
My administration created something called BPD 21C, Buffalo Police Department 21st Century. It is a first of its kind program in the nation to recruit and scholarship the diverse police department that reflects the diversity of our city. The U.S. Justice Department noted this program as a model program and one of the first in the nation to do this. We've also we are training every police officer to be a community police officer, which we're very proud of. We think that interaction between the community and police are critically important, which is why we open our district police stations once a month for members of the community to come in, engage with, talk to, and work with our police officers. Those meetings have been very successful. We also, going forward, will be looking to increase the residency requirement for police officers. We know that the community is stronger and safer when the officers that police the community come from the community.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Controller Schroeder. Please.
There is evidence to suggest that the Buffalo Police Department is the most undertrained department in New York State because of you, Mayor, and Commissioner Durenda. The officers are starving for training. The federal government in civil liability cases refer to it as deliberate indifference. Deliberate indifference. And so when a department refuses to properly train its personnel, that is a problem, not only for the officers, but especially for our community. And so let's just review this a little bit also, Mr. Mayor. For instance, in 2016, there were 46 homicides. Only 11 were closed, meaning the rest are open, that is a rate of 24%. But it gets worse, Mr. Mayor. In 2017, there were 32 homicides already, and we're not through this year yet. And 4 have been closed. That's 12%. That is the worst rating in the nation. And so training and doubling community police officers, which is in my plan, it's in the work plan and it's in for Safe Streets. We have to have a plan, Buffalo, or we're going to continue to have the heartache that parents and grandparents and our family members have each and every day in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. Before you take that, I need to take this occasion to let our CW23 viewers know that you're about to lose us. Thank you very much for joining us for this mayoral debate. Now, Mayor Brown, you have your 30-second rebuttal.
Any one violent crime, any one homicide is one too many. All of our police officers get cultural diversity training. They get training in dealing with people who have mental health issues. They get CPR training. They also were the first department in the region to begin to administer Narcan, the overdose reversal medication, and have now, with the Buffalo Fire Department, revived over 2,000 individuals who have overdosed in this community. Our police officers are well trained. We're working with the police union, and we continue to update training for our police officers on a regular and consistent basis.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, audience. Take a deep breath. We are about to hear our closing statements from our 3 candidates. 1 minute for the closing statement, starting with Mayor Brown.
Again, I want to thank the organizations that have sponsored this mayoral debate tonight. I want to thank my colleagues, the legislator and controller, for participating in this debate. And I want to thank all of you for coming out. The past nearly 12 years have been the proudest time in my life. I love the city of Buffalo, and I love the work that I do on behalf of our residents. And I am asking for your continued support, for your vote, so that we can continue together the work that we have started to move this community forward and to build the city of Buffalo as a city of opportunity for all people. Yes, there is still work that needs to be done. I am the one that is most equipped to work with the community to do that work. Now is not the time to slow down. Now is not the time to go backwards. I say let's go forward together and continue to build Buffalo as a great city of opportunity for every single resident. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you, audience. 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 We're just about done. Sam, please. Legislative Grant.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And as you know, in city government, in the common council, and of course the mayor and the controller's office, there are no females. For the first time in 30 years, the top 3 positions City Hall has no women. If you talk about diversity, that needs to change. And the change can start with me being elected mayor of the city of Buffalo. I come with no strings attached. I have not received 1 penny from Cara Palladino, the infamous Cara Palladino that just got removed from the Board of Education. I received not 1 penny. I received not 1 penny from LP Simonelli, who are on indictment for guess what building? The Solar City building that's still empty on South Park Avenue. I have not received not 1 penny from the Conservative Party. that determines Buffalo should not have primaries other than the Democratic primaries in City of Buffalo. I bring to you a sincere that I will have a transparent government with no strings attached. I will not engage in play politics, and like I said before, City Hall would not be sold to the highest bidder.
Legislator Grant?
And let me take definition of sanity. Voting the same way for 12 years and expecting a different result. So this year,
Grant?
vote for me for mayor of the City of Buffalo.
Legislator Grant. Controller, thank you. Controller Schroeder.
Thank you to all of the organizations. So on September 12th is the Democratic primary. On September 12th is the Democratic primary. The people of Buffalo will have a choice. That's 26 days away, but who's counting? They can either choose more of the same or something more. City government is broken, and I know how to fix it. There is mismanagement in the police department and other departments of City Hall. There are potholes across the city of Buffalo where some residents tell me they're not even potholes, they're called ditches. Pay-to-play culture in City Hall has been all around, and you've seen it front page Buffalo News last Sunday. 7 different probes going on with this administration. The people of Buffalo, you deserve better. Buffalo needs a mayor with a new vision, a plan for every neighborhood, east, west, north, and south. On September 12th, I asked you to cast your vote for me, Mark Schroeder, and for a new vision for all of Buffalo. Thank you.
Thank you, Controller Schroeder. Now you can give a hand to all 3 candidates here at the front table. Want to take this opportunity to thank our 3 candidates for being here. Mayor Brown, Legislator Grant, Controller Schroeder. I want to thank WIVB-TV and WNLO CW23 for televising this. And I want to thank the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists for making this possible. And of course, your audience, the audience, you guys have been very passionate and respectful. And thank you very much. Hopefully, we all learned something from this. Have a great night, drive safely, and remember to vote on September 12th.